Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees and here are today's top stories. The Prime Minister said the CCP virus pandemic left the government no option but to cut the foreign aid budget. But he's facing opposition from not just Labour, but also his immediate predecessor.
With deep regret, I will vote against the motion today.
A new battle for Britain. Senior Conservative MPs say the fight to defend free speech on university campuses is the struggle of our generation.
Nothing matters more. This is our battle for Britain.
And France will make vaccines mandatory for health workers, and people will need a COVID health pass to enter restaurants, cafes and shopping centres. The Prime Minister has defended the government's plans to cut the foreign aid budget, saying the extra spending caused by the pandemic has made the cuts necessary. But there was strong opposition from both sides of the aisle. NTD's Eddie Aitken brings us the details.
Boris Johnson defended the government's decision to cut foreign aid from 0.7% of gross national income to 0.5%. Opening the debate in the Commons, he said the government has been forced to make the cuts because public borrowing increased fivefold during the COVID-19 pandemic.
And it bears repeating that we are doing this in the midst of a terrible crisis, when our public finances are under greater strain than ever before in peacetime history, and every pound we spend in aid has to be borrowed, and in fact represents not our money, but money that we are taking from future generations.
But his decision was met with strong opposition from across the aisle and his own backbenchers, including his predecessor, Theresa May.
We made a promise to the poorest people in the world. The government has broken that promise. This motion means that promise may be broken for years to come. With deep regret, I will vote against the motion today.
Labour leader Keir Starmer argued the proposed aid cut will diminish Britain's international presence, creating gaps for authoritarian regimes to take advantage of.
This cut will also reduce UK influence, Mr. Speaker, just when it's needed most. And of course it risks leaving a vacuum which other countries, for example China and Russia, will fill.
In response, the Prime Minister said the government is committed to return to the previous level of foreign aid as soon as the situation allows. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Senior Conservatives claim they are involved in a battle for Britain and dealing with modern McCarthyism by supporting laws designed to protect freedom of speech. NTD's Costa Jimenez brings us this report.
MPs have been debating a new bill on protecting free speech on university campuses. The bill would require registered universities and colleges in England to promote and defend freedom of speech and academic freedom. Education Secretary Gavin Williamson says the bill is needed because growing intolerance on campus has had a chilling effect on freedom of speech.
I have previously spoken on how this growing intolerance cannot be allowed to take root, and had made clear that if universities would not protect free speech, the government would.
Tory MP David Davis says UK universities are in the grip of modern McCarthyism, as even established people have become victims of so-called cancel culture.
Now, the bill before us is to correct a small, and I grant you it's small, but extraordinarily important symbolic aspect of this modern McCarthyism, namely the attempt to no platform a number of speakers, including Amber Rudd, Julie Bindel, Peter Hitchens, Peter Tatchell, and others. I hope it's just the first step, actually, in a programme to bring free speech back to Britain.
Sir John Hayes, another Conservative former minister, says it is chilling that today's British education institutions are intent on producing a carbon copy of politically correct individuals.
Make no mistake, this culture war is the issue of our age. It is the struggle of our generation. Nothing matters more. This is our battle for Britain.
Labour wants to block the bill, arguing it could provide legal protection to those engaged in what they call harmful and dangerous speech. But the Education Secretary says the government has made it clear that the bill protects lawful speech only. The bill cleared second reading and will undergo further scrutiny at a later date. Kostem NS, NTD News.
Scotland today announced it will follow England in allowing double-jabbed travellers to avoid quarantine on return from amber list countries. Restrictions are to ease in Scotland on Monday, 19th of July. NTD's Neil Woodray has more on this.
First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced on Tuesday that Scotland will not require citizens returning from amber list countries to self-isolate. This follows the rules set in England for those with both vaccine doses.
Lastly, from Monday, the 19th of July, self-isolation will no longer be required for people arriving from countries on the amber list, provided they are fully vaccinated through a UK vaccination programme and take a PCR test on the second day after arrival.
The news will be welcomed by the travel industry. CEOs from AGS Airports, which owns terminals in Aberdeen and Glasgow, as well as EasyJet, Loganair, Jet2 and TUI, had been calling for such a move. But Sturgeon said they will continue to take a precautionary approach to countries on the amber list.
And notwithstanding this change, we do continue to advise against non-essential overseas travel at this time.
In England, the government will remove that advice from green and amber list countries, leaving it only for the red list. Sturgeon said that anyone testing positive for COVID or having symptoms of infection will still be expected to self-isolate for 10 days.
We are easing restrictions next week, but we are not abandoning them. And even when we move beyond level 0, we will continue to require some baseline measures, such as face coverings, for a period longer.
Public health specialist Professor Andrew Waterson urged the First Minister to keep the current restrictions in place. He said too few people have the protection of both vaccine doses. The latest statistics for Scotland show 4 coronavirus deaths and around 2,500 new cases were recorded in the past 24 hours. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Ireland is set to relax restrictions for people who are fully vaccinated or were recently infected with COVID-19. NTD's Anna Rodriguez has the details.
The Republic of Ireland is going to allow indoor dining for people with evidence of vaccination or immunity from COVID-19. The Cabinet approved new legislation on Monday, so those who are fully vaccinated or have had the virus within the last 6 months can enter cafes, restaurants, pubs and other licensed venues. Accompanying minors will be allowed to enter with parents or guardians, and social distancing measures will still apply. The legislation is set to be passed by the Dáil, that is the lower house of Ireland's Parliament, this week and come into force next week or by July 26th at the latest. It will run until October 9th, after which an extension must be approved by both houses of Parliament. Deputy Prime Minister Leo Varadkar says he hopes the approach is not seen as discrimination and is entirely a public health measure. Anna Rodriguez, NTD News.
British manufacturers and those in other parts of Europe want to move more of their supply chain for batteries used in electric cars away from China and closer to their plants. That's according to a survey released on Tuesday. China dominates the processing of the minerals used in electric vehicle batteries, as well as making the cells and related components, with Japan and South Korea in a distant second and third place. But manufacturers in a survey of 200 European firms said they had grown more concerned about supply chain disruption over the past year and wanted to use suppliers closer to home. And in other news, France will make vaccines mandatory for health workers. And from August, people will need a COVID health pass to enter restaurants, cafes and shopping centres. NTD's Natalia Nating has the story.
Hundreds of thousands of French people are rushing to set up COVID vaccination appointments after President Emmanuel Macron warns the unvaccinated will face restrictions. In order to curb the spread of the Indian variant, health workers in the country have to get vaccinated by September 15th. The head of one of the country's biggest vaccine appointment websites says almost 1 million vaccine appointments have been booked since the announcement. Macron says from July 21st, those aged 12 and over will be required to have a health pass to access shows, amusement parks, concerts and festivals. The pass is currently only required for large-scale events. It provides proof that a person has either been vaccinated or has a recent negative PCR test. From the beginning of August, the health pass will also be required for entering cafes, restaurants, shopping centres and hospitals, and for boarding long-distance trains and planes. A slowdown in vaccination rates and a sharp upturn in new infections of the Indian variant have forced the government to rethink its strategy. New cases in France are now at nearly 4,000 per day, double the figure of late June. Natalia Nutting, NTD News.
Madrid is hoping a historic urban park and surrounding cultural area will be awarded World Heritage status by UNESCO. The Buen Retiro Park and the Paseo del Prado have been central to city life since the 16th and 17th centuries. NTD's Joy Duguid brings us their story.
An idyllic day in the Buen Retiro Park Lake. This place is a green haven for residents of Madrid, right in the centre of the Spanish capital, and it could soon get international recognition. It's been nominated for inclusion in UNESCO's prestigious World Heritage List. Madrid City Council believes the 16th and 17th century site is unique in its era and meets UNESCO's criterion of outstanding universal value. The area includes an abundance of institutions such as the Cibeles Palace, the current seat of Madrid City Council, the Bank of Spain or Casa de America building. It also boasts a number of famous monuments, such as the Puerta de Alcalá Gate and the Cibeles and Neptuno fountains. The Buen Retiro Park and El Prado Promenade in Madrid has evolved from the former royal site since the 17th century.
The Paseo del Prado is the first tree-lined urban promenade recorded in the history of Western urban planning. It's a landscape model which was exported to America.
Citizens began to use El Prado Promenade in the 15th century as a place of recreation. Carriages and all social classes used to meet here for walking. In modern times, the transport may have changed, but the enjoyment of the space remains.
Madrid should win because its nomination presents the biggest green zone in the center of a city in all of Europe. In Europe, there is no park like the 120 hectares of Buen Retiro and an 8-hectare research garden like the Royal Botanical Garden.
The decision on whether it gets World Heritage status will be made at the World Heritage Committee's 44th session from the 16th to the 31st of July. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Still to come, Spain demands the immediate release of a detained journalist in Cuba who was covering mass protests in the communist-ruled island. That and more when we return. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.